The night everything changed, I was elbow deep in a broken carburetor, wearing my dad's old coveralls, and completely unreachable by the outside world. That's the thing about working the late shift at Halvorson's Auto. The shop gets quiet around 9, the radio plays something old and twangy, and for a few hours I can pretend my life is exactly as small and manageable as I want it to be. Just me, the cars, and the hiss of the hydraulic lift. No landlord calling about the water heater. No hospital bills in the mail. No reminders that 31 years old was supposed to look different than this. My name is Tilda. Matilda Ann Okafor, if we're being formal, which almost nobody ever is. Half Nigerian, half Minnesota, all grease stains. My mother used to say I was born holding a wrench, which wasn't true, obviously, but felt true in the way that only a mother's stories do. She passed 3 years ago. Breast cancer, stage 4, diagnosed too late. After that, I took over my uncle's shop when he moved to Phoenix, and I told myself the plan was temporary. I'd save enough, go back to school, finish the engineering degree I'd dropped out of. The plan had been temporary for 2.5 years now. I wasn't unhappy. That's what I want to be clear about. I had my regulars, Mrs. Brandt, who brought Kalash every time she came in for an oil change. Old Terrence, who drove a '68 Mustang, he refused to modernize and treated like a second wife. I had my cat, Biscuit, who slept on the parts shelf and knocked things over at 3 a.m. for fun. I had a 1-bedroom apartment above a Vietnamese bakery on Lyndale Avenue, and on Sunday mornings the smell of fresh bread came up through the vents and made the whole place feel like something out of a story that ended well. It was a Tuesday in March when the black Escalade pulled into the lot. I noticed it before I heard it. The headlights swept across the shop wall in a way that felt deliberate, unhurried. Like whoever was driving wasn't worried about the time. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked out, assuming it was someone locked out of their car or needing a jump. We got that sometimes, even after hours, because my uncle had put the shop number on a 24-hour listing by mistake and never took it down. The man who stepped out wasn't locked out of anything. He was tall, the kind of tall that rearranges a room, with dark hair cut close on the sides and a jaw that looked like it had opinions. He wore a charcoal wool coat, no tie, and the kind of calm that doesn't come from yoga or therapy. It comes from having made decisions other people can't unmake. I'd seen men like him exactly once before, at my cousin's courthouse wedding in Chicago, where her husband's uncle had shown up in a car exactly like this one, kissed her cheek, handed over an envelope, and left before the cake was cut. My cousin had told me not to ask questions. I hadn't. "We're closed," I said. "I know." He looked at the shop, then at me, not in a threatening way, more like he was noting details, cataloging them. "Your sign says 24 hours. My uncle made a mistake in 2019. We never fixed it." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile. "Honest. It's easier." He looked at the Escalade, then back at me. "I need a favor. I'm not a towing service. It's not about the car." He said it simply, without embarrassment, which was somehow more alarming than if he'd been nervous. "My name is Rafferty. I run certain operations in this city. There's a charity gala on Saturday. The Meridian Foundation dinner, downtown Marriott. Black tie. My business partner is expecting me to bring someone. A date." I waited. There had to be more. "My assistant booked someone," he continued, "who turned out to have a conflict of interest, a significant one. I need a replacement, quickly and quietly, someone who has no connection to my business, someone unknown. And you ended up at a closed auto shop at 9:15 on a Tuesday. You were recommended. That stopped me." "By who?" "Terrence Allwood. He says you're the most trustworthy person he knows." I made a mental note to have words with Terrence about staying in his lane. "I'm a mechanic," I said. "I don't go to charity galas." "I know. That's part of why I'm here." He reached into his coat and set a business card on the hood of the closest car. Not pushing it toward me, just placing it. $5,000 for Saturday evening. You'd need a dress. I'll cover that. I'll have someone send options tomorrow. "I don't want your money." "Then donate it. But I need someone who won't ask questions, won't talk afterward, and won't be recognized by anyone in that room." He paused. "Terrence said you keep your head down." "Terrence talks too much. He also said you have about $60,000 in medical debt from your mother's treatment." The air between us changed, not because it was a threat. His voice was the same, level and flat, but because it was true, and I hadn't told anyone that. I'd told my accountant. I'd told the collection agency that called every other Wednesday. I hadn't told Terrence, which meant this man had found it another way. That's private, I said. I'm not using it as leverage. He met my eyes directly. I'm telling you because I want you to know I'm not wasting your time. The offer is real. The money would clear it. I looked at the business card on the hood. No logo, just a phone number. And what do I get if something goes wrong? He didn't answer right away. Most people fill silence. He let it sit. Nothing goes wrong, he said finally. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It isn't. I picked up the card. By Thursday, a garment bag had appeared outside my apartment door. Inside, 3 dresses, each one more expensive than my monthly rent, with a handwritten note that just said your choice in handwriting so precise it looked like a font. I tried all 3, standing in front of my bathroom mirror while Biscuit supervised from the toilet lid. I chose the navy one. Less conspicuous than the red, more serious than the blush. The kind of dress that says I belong here without saying look at me. I left Biscuit extra food and a note for my neighbor to check on him, which was ridiculous, because cats don't read notes, and neighbors don't need them. But it made me feel like I'd told someone where I was going. Sort of. The car arrived Saturday at 6. Not the Escalade, a different one, black, driven by a man named Holt who told me his name once and didn't offer anything else. We drove downtown in silence that felt professional rather than unfriendly. Rafferty was waiting under the hotel portico. He was in a black tux, the kind that looked like it had been made for him specifically, which it probably had. He looked at me the way he'd looked at the shop, that quick, cataloging glance, and gave the smallest nod. You look appropriate, he said. High praise. It is, actually. He offered his arm. Stay close. If anyone asks, we met through a mutual friend named Drummond. Don't elaborate. If someone makes you uncomfortable, find me. What if you're the one making me uncomfortable? He looked at me sideways. Then you're in good company. Inside, the Meridian Gala was everything I'd never been. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths so stiff they held their own opinions. Women in gowns that cost as much as my car. Men with the particular confidence of people who had never doubted their place in a room. A string quartet played something I recognized from a movie, but couldn't name. Rafferty moved through it like water. Easy, unrushed, shaking hands, exchanging words that sounded social and weren't. I stayed at his side and said the right number of nothing. A few people tried to draw me out. I smiled. I mentioned the mutual friend named Drummond. I asked questions about people's work, which made them like me instantly, because people love to be asked about themselves. At dinner, I was seated between a real estate developer named Gorman, who wouldn't stop talking about commercial square footage in the North Loop, and a woman named Celestine, who ran the Meridian Foundation and watched Rafferty across the table with an expression I couldn't fully read. How long have you known Rafferty? She asked me, low between courses. Long enough, I said, which was both true and nothing at all. She nodded slowly. He doesn't usually bring anyone. I gathered. Be careful, she said, and then the next course arrived and she turned to her other neighbor, and the moment closed like a door. I filed that away. After dinner, there was a reception hour. Cocktails, a silent auction, the soft low roar of 200 people deciding they were having a good time. Rafferty found me near the bar, and for the first time all evening, he looked something other than composed. We need to step out, he said quietly. 5 minutes. Don't make it obvious. I set down my glass. Something's wrong. My associate was supposed to deliver a document package to this event. He hasn't arrived. His phone is off. Which associate? He hesitated one beat too long. Drummond. Something cold moved through me. The name he'd told me to use if anyone asked. The name that was supposed to be a fiction. It wasn't. We stepped into a side hallway, service corridor attached to the kitchen, the noise of the party muffled behind us. He was already on his phone, face tight. I watched the set of his shoulders and understood, without being told, that whatever was supposed to happen tonight was not happening. Someone moved on him before he got here, Rafferty said, phone down, 30 minutes ago. Moved on him meaning, he's in a hospital in Bloomington. He'll live, but what he was carrying won't wait. I didn't ask what it was. I'd decided, somewhere between the carburetor and the garment bag, that I was going to do this one thing and then go back to my life, and that doing it well meant not asking questions that would make me part of something larger. But the look on his face was doing something to that plan. It wasn't fear exactly. It was the particular expression of someone who had very few people and had just lost one. "What can I do?" I said. He looked at me. Really looked. Not the cataloging glance. "You shouldn't do anything. This isn't what you signed up for. Terrence told you I was trustworthy. You said trustworthy was the point. Trustworthy and involved are different things. They don't have to be." I don't fully know why I said it. Maybe because the alternative was going home to Biscuit, and the bread smell and the collection agency call on Wednesday. Maybe because Celestine had told me to be careful, and I've never responded well to being told to be careful. Maybe because he'd looked at me like I was a detail worth noting, and no one had done that in a while. We went back into the Gala. We smiled at the right people. We stayed for the right amount of time. And then, at 9:15, we left through a side exit and got into the Escalade, and I watched the Minneapolis skyline slide past the window, while he made phone calls in a voice so low. I couldn't hear words, only tone. He dropped me first. When we stopped outside my building, he turned to look at me for a moment. "The $5,000 will be in your account tomorrow," he said. "I told you I didn't want it. I know. Donate it." I got out. Then I stopped, hand on the door. "The man who got to your associate, did he know what to look for, or was he just watching your people in general?" Rafferty was quiet for a moment. "Why?" "Because if he knew specifically what Drummond was carrying, that's someone inside. And if it's someone inside, then the person who set this whole thing up tonight, the original date, the one with the conflict of interest, might not have been a coincidence." He stared at me. "Good night," I said, and closed the door. He called at 7:15 the next morning. I was under a 2019 Subaru Forester and had grease on my face already, which felt right. "The original date," he said, without preamble. "Her name is Audra Finch. She's a paralegal at Colton, Voss, and Burke. She has a brother who owes a significant amount of money to a man named Strelnikov." I slid out from under the car, sat up. "So she was placed, it appears that way, and Drummond was meant to deliver a document package at an event where I, or rather she, would have access to it before you did." Silence. "You didn't think of that," I said. "I thought of it at 3 in the morning. He paused. "I didn't think of it before, because you were too busy trying to fix the immediate problem. The date." I wiped my hands. "What was in the documents? Property deeds, accounts in 3 names. Enough to bring down 2 city council members and a federal procurement officer." I let that land for a second. "And now?" "And now, Drummond is in Bloomington and the documents are delayed. And Strelnikov knows I have them, which means I have a window. 48 hours, maybe. Go to the FBI. The procurement officer is FBI adjacent, then a journalist. The journalist I trust is in Amsterdam. Call him." Another silence, different from the first ones. "Her," he said, and I already did. "She's on a flight." I looked at Biscuit, who had come to sit next to the Subaru and was staring at me with the judgmental serenity of a cat who knew something was happening and disapproved. "I want to know one thing," I said. "Drummond. Is he actually your friend, or is he an asset?" The pause before the answer told me everything I needed. "Both," he said, "which is worse, actually." "Yes," I agreed. "It is." I told him I'd call him back. I didn't that day. I changed the oil on the Subaru, replaced the brake pads on a Civic, listened to Terrence talk for 45 minutes about whether or not his Mustang needed new spark plugs. It didn't, yet. At closing, I locked up, fed Biscuit, and sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote down everything I'd noticed at the Gala that I hadn't said out loud. Celestine. The way she'd watched Rafferty across the table. Be careful. Not he's dangerous. Not he's not what he seems. Just be careful. As if she expected me to stay. As if she'd said it to someone before, and it hadn't worked. A man named Gorman who'd talked about commercial real estate with the exhausting specificity of someone performing expertise rather than having it. Who'd asked me twice how long I'd known Rafferty and accepted my non-answers too easily, as if he'd already known the truth. And Audra Finch, the paralegal, who I hadn't seen at the gala but whose absence had shaped the whole evening. I called Rafferty at 10:30. "Gorman," I said. "A beat. What about him?" He knew I was a replacement. He wasn't fishing for information. He was confirming what he already had. A longer beat. "He's on 3 Meridian Foundation committees. He's also who told Strelnikov when Drummond would be moving." I didn't know this for certain. It was a guess built out of the way he'd asked questions with the cadence of someone checking boxes. But it felt true, the way the things that matter usually do. Not loud, not obvious, just there, waiting to be seen. Rafferty didn't answer for a moment. "Then, how do you know this?" "I don't. But you should find out if Gorman has any financial relationship with anyone named Strelnikov, and you should probably do it before your journalist lands." He found out. It took until morning, and he didn't tell me how, and I didn't ask. But at 6:52 a.m., on Monday, my phone buzzed with a text from an unsaved number. "You were right. Thank you." Then 3 minutes later, "Drummond says hi." I smiled at that, set the phone down, got ready for work. The journalist's name was Penelope Varga, and she published on a Thursday. And by Friday morning, the city council story was on every local news station and 2 national ones. Gorman's name wasn't in the first piece. Rafferty had been clear about what could be used immediately, but his financial ties to Strelnikov's shell companies came out in the second wave, 10 days later, and the federal investigation that followed was thorough and, from what I could tell, sincere. Rafferty came to the shop on a Wednesday afternoon in April. No appointment. He drove himself this time, a gray sedan, nothing remarkable. He was in jeans and a jacket that still cost more than my rent, but just barely. "You're still here," he said, looking around the shop. "It's my shop." I thought maybe. He stopped. "Terrence said you'd applied to finish your engineering degree." I had. I hadn't told Terrence that either, which meant this man had sources everywhere, or Terrence was psychic. I was going to have serious words with Terrence. "I did," I said. "Part-time. Fall semester." He nodded slowly. Looked at a calendar on the wall, a 2026 one, from an auto parts supplier with photos of classic cars. "I wanted to say thank you in person. You texted. That was different." I set down the wrench I was holding. The money cleared the debt, by the way. I split it. Half to the hospital foundation, half to a breast cancer research nonprofit my mom used to donate to. He didn't say anything. "I wanted you to know it wasn't wasted," I said. It wasn't. He looked at me with that same particular attention, the kind that notices things. "Neither were you." He left 15 minutes. Later, Biscuit, who had absolutely no social instincts, walked over to investigate his shoes while he was still there, which was mortifying. And he crouched down and let the cat sniff his hand with the kind of patience I hadn't expected. Small things are the ones that stay. I finished the semester in December. Mechanics and engineering turn out to share more than most people think. Both are about understanding systems, finding where the pressure is being applied wrong, knowing that most failures are failures of attention rather than design. My professor at the University of Minnesota, a sharp-eyed woman named Dr. Achebe, who had no tolerance for late work and even less for imprecision, told me in November that I had the instincts for material sciences and asked if I'd considered specializing. I hadn't. I was considering it now. Terrence came in for his biannual checkup in January. He brought coffee, which was new, and sat on the stool near the lift, while I went through the Mustang the way I always did. Unhurried, thorough, talking to him about the small gossip of the neighborhood, the way the Vietnamese bakery downstairs had added a new pastry that I was dangerously obsessed with. "You seem different," he said. "I'm the same," settled. He tilted his head. "Like something stopped bothering you." I tightened a bolt. "The debt's gone. It's not just the money." He was quiet for a moment. "Rafferty told me what you did." I looked up. He shouldn't have. He didn't tell me details. Just said you noticed something no one else caught. He shrugged, the way old men do when they want to pretend they're not proud. "I told him you were the right person. You told him about my debt." I did. He met my eyes. Because he was asking who in this city could be trusted, really trusted, and I've been bringing this car to you for 9 years and I've never once had to wonder. He paused. Was I wrong too? I thought about it. The garment bag outside the door, the service corridor. Celestine's quiet warning. Gorman's too easy acceptance of my answers. Drummond in Bloomington. The legal pad. The text at 6:52. No, I said. You weren't wrong. I finished the checkup. Poured us both coffee from the pot in the back, which was better than gas station coffee but not by enough. We sat for a while, the way you can with someone you've known long enough that silence doesn't need to be filled. After he left, I locked up early. Walked to the bakery downstairs, bought one of the new pastries. A mung bean thing with sesame that shouldn't have worked as well as it did, and ate it standing at my kitchen window looking out at the street. The collection notices were gone. The legal pad was in the recycling. Biscuit was on the windowsill beside me, doing the slow blink that cats do when they've decided you're tolerable. I had a second pastry. I called Dr. Achi about the materials science track. I left a voicemail because it was after hours, which was fine. Some decisions don't need to be made at speed. They just need to be made. Outside, the Minneapolis evening was doing the thing it does in January, where the cold is so precise it feels like the city is being outlined in it. Every edge clarified. Every boundary exact. I've always liked that about winter here. It makes everything visible. I didn't know what Rafferty's world looked like from the inside. I didn't need to. I knew what I'd seen. A man with few people he trusted. A system that could be read if you paid attention. And the particular satisfaction of being the one who noticed what no one else thought to look for. 31 years old in a one-bedroom apartment above a bakery. Grease under my fingernails most days. Engineering textbooks on the kitchen table. Not the life I'd planned, but plans are just guesses dressed up in certainty, and I'd learned to trust the things that felt true over the things that were supposed to. My phone buzzed, a number I'd saved now but almost hadn't. New project, different kind, no Gala. Interested? I looked at it for a moment, at Biscuit, at the pastry wrapper on the counter. I typed back, depends. Do I need a dress? 3 dots, then steel-toed boots, actually. I smiled. Typed, those I have.